Hello, everyone. I am Marie Janelle, and I am an early childhood mental wellness professional and the mom of four awesome adult children, and also the Mom Who Soar consultant and coach. And I coach motivated moms on how to soar above anxiety, stress, loneliness, and self doubt. As a result of my coaching program, moms experience greater emotional wellness and have greater self confidence, which directly affects their children's social emotional well being and also helps them have an elevated start in life. So, today we are going to talk with a great mom that I know at my church, and she's also a doctor. And I'm so thankful and pleased that she agreed to talk with me a little bit about her mom journey. So, her name is Dr. Yemisi Jones, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. And Yemisi, you can tell anything about yourself you'd like us to know about you and
Mhm.
who you are. So, thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you for the invitation, Marie. It's definitely an honor to get to talk to you. And I love being a mom, so I'm happy to talk about this journey. But I am a mother of three. My daughter is 10, my son is 7, and then our newest addition is 5 months old. Um, been married for about 16 years. And as Marie said, I am a physician, I'm a pediatrician. So I'm around kids a lot. I do like kids. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
That's amazing. So that's great to hear. So thank you so much for coming and thank you
Mhm.
for sharing your journey with us. And I have four children of my own. And like I said, I had mentioned earlier, I have a son who is 37. I have a daughter who will be 35 this year. And a second daughter who is 32, and my youngest is 30. So my motherhood journey
Mm,
started a long time ago, and
mm,
that's what sort of got me into what I'm doing right now. I started out really young. I'm married at 20 years old, and before I was 21, I was pregnant with a son, and I was like, "What is this?"
mm,
And then every 2.5 years, I had a little person entering our family. So
mm,
there was a lot of days that I felt, what am I doing and what's going on here? And
mm.
um, at one point, I remember thinking, if I don't shut this factory down, I'll have about 10 kids around here. So, but I'm super thankful for them. And but at the time, it was a lot of work for sure. And
Yeah.
I was a stay-at-home mom about the first 10 years. Very first year when I only had my son, I actually worked outside the home. But after I got pregnant second, it was just too much. And I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any degrees at the time. So every dollar I had would have gone for childcare. So
Mm.
it was for us, it was the choice for me to stay in the home, which I'm glad I did. And I'll talk a little bit about my kids and where they are. But as far as like even I don't know if to start off even with childbirthing stories, I don't know if you had any of the stories, any of your kids. I know every birth is special and different. Anything
Yeah.
stands out to you that you like to share with us about any of that journey?
Childbirth. I mean, I had a very beautiful pregnancies and labors and deliveries. It's always difficult, no matter what your pregnancy is like. But thankfully, I didn't have any, medical problems or anything like that. I think one thing that is funny. I mean, I just had a labor and delivery 5 months ago, so that one's fresh in my mind.
Right.
And because it had been a minute since I'd been through this. Well, first of all, I thought it's my third baby. Baby's gonna fall out. It'll be fine. It'll be really easy. And the second one was actually pretty quick. He actually almost did fall out at home. But actually, it turns out I think because it had been 7 years and my body needed a little like remembering, and so it was a little bit more challenging than I expected it to be with number three. But thankfully everything went smoothly. Again, no major issues or anything like that. But it is one of those things. I wonder about the moms who have 4, 5, 17 kids. I just wonder, is it does it ever become like old hat? Because I felt like,
You're
man,
right.
like even though I've been through this several times before, I feel like it is still labor. It's still
Yep.
and it's like you said, it's each one was unique, and I could say that about my three kids for sure.
Wow, wow. I know I've saw recently on Facebook there was a lot of new interest in home birth on purpose.
Mm,
Um, the water births and all those are new for
mm-hmm.
me. My children were born in the late 80s, early 90s, so I'm a little bit dated, of course, when it comes to. And back then, it was just you chose the hospital, that was it. It was no other real
Yeah.
choices. Um, My first, though, he was actually born at home by mistake. That was an accident. I actually
Oh, your
didn't know I was in labor.
first.
Yes, my first, and that story, I will give the abbreviated version of it because it could be really long. And like my dad used to say, to make a short story long, he would go the opposite.
Mm.
Pretty much, I didn't know I was in labor, and I really, all night I had a backache, and I was, I couldn't, my husband at the
Oh.
time was at home, and I was back labor. I just didn't know that's what it was, and I had attended one Lamaze class, so I hadn't even finished the whole session. I didn't know how to breathe. I just saw TV, in your mouth, out your nose. No, and your nose out your no shoot how was it and your nose out your mouth or something like whatever the no
Okay.
whatever the was. I only knew one. So anyway, so I was there, and it was overnight, and then my husband at the time, we're not married now, but my husband at the time, he was at work, and so he came home in the morning, but his and his mom, we lived with them in their basement apartment, so they
Mm.
were all both at work that night, and I went upstairs to his place. Long story short, that she came home about
Oh
10 in the
my
morning,
gosh.
and I'm like, oh, my back is about 9. I said, my back is really hurting. I think I might be in labor. My stomach is a little tight. She said, well, come on up. We'll time the contractions. We timed it for an hour. They got tight. And all I kept thinking
Mm-hmm.
was, if this is labor, I know I can do this. But it was like, it wasn't like really bad. It was just like tight. And
Mm-hmm.
the first hour, I said, I have to push. And she was like, no, honey, it's not time to push yet. I said, oh, I have to push. I couldn't help it. And I pushed once, and the water
Yes.
broke. And I was like, okay, I'm more wet. So I got up, went to the bathroom. I'm like, okay, I gotta poop and I gotta throw up at the same time. What am I gonna do? So I
Uh-huh.
sat still and I leaned over the toilet, and then I said, I think the baby's coming. She said, get back in the bed. So I'm running back, I'm waddling back to the bed. Next thing I know, she said, don't push. Just breathe in your nose and out your mouth. So I'm going like this. And so she turned her back for 1 second to get on the phone to call the doctor because the water broke. And that I pitched one more time, just one second time, and this whole body just flew out in the bed. And I'm laying there like, oh my gosh, this baby is here. I can't believe this. I just had a baby. But now he was 5 weeks early. So I didn't go backwards. He was premature.
Oh,
He was 5 weeks. He was
okay.
about 35 weeks. So he was still really tiny. And
Wow.
his lungs were developed fine. And by the time she turned around, it had been only about 15 minutes from the time I first pushed the first time to the second time.
Oh my
And then she's
goodness.
calling, and my husband at the time walks in, and he's like, what's going on? And they call the ambulance, and it was like all these guys walking into the room, and I'm like so embarrassed. And all I could think of at 21 was, can I go take a
Mm-hmm.
shower before we go to the hospital? And they're like, it's too late for
Oh,
that.
no,
So he was
yes.
all good and
Oh
everything's
my
fine. But that was
goodness.
my introduction to motherhood, was into in
Wow.
the whole thing. And I was just like, what is this?
Wow.
Yeah, that story was like etched in my mind, and the girls were all a
Yeah.
little bit not easier, but they were in the
I was gonna
hospital,
say,
so we made sure they were all there.
did
And
they all come out that quickly? Man, that's
they
amazing.
not as fast, but they were. I mean, my labors were probably less than 6 hours from the time I
Mm.
was, so it didn't. I wasn't like an all day or all nighter type thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to really be careful of that. So, with
Mm-hmm.
all that being said, like I said, there's always every story is so different and so unique, and
Mm.
um, I guess another thing too, like about motherhood, like what do you think of motherhood? Like what's changed for you as a result of being a mother? Like what did anything like becoming a mother change you in any kind of way, or that
Mm.
you can
I
think of?
mean, I mean, certainly, because I think your priorities change and kind of your day to day definitely changes, right? So,
Yep.
when we were married, my husband and I were married for about five, say, I can't do the math right now, about at least 5 years before we had our first child. And we lived apart for a couple of those years because we were both in different states doing our medical training and stuff. So, there was a long period of time in, even though we got married fairly young, we were 26 and 25. In my young adult life, there was a fair amount of time where, I was either single or by myself or married without
Mhm.
kids. And so I do feel like, we got, pretty, we were able to sort of mature into ourselves and, had the things that we like to do and, our sort of routines and our schedules, and we had our the way our home life was going to be. And so
Mhm.
definitely
Mhm.
having kids has changed that. I will say my husband and I were pretty of one mind about not having our lives completely revolve around children, and we're sort of more of the philosophy of they're fitting into our lives. We believe that we had a family before they came, so we didn't start a family when we started having kids. Like we just expanded our family, and so we like to travel. We like to, there's things that we like to do, and as much as possible, we like to fold the children into that. And so, I will say that um, in that way, we try to not, I mean, it does slow you down a little bit, especially at the beginning, but we try to continue to be true to who we were as a family before the children came along. Where I know that that's not necessarily the same with some friends that I have, and that's not how everyone does it, but that was helpful for us, I think, to be able to sort of keep some sort of identity. I will say as time has gone on and as we've gotten busier and as more kids added, I have found lately that, like, well, we've gotten away from some of that. So I've gotten away from some of that, sort of who I was before. And actually, one of my goals this year was really getting back to the things that, I used to enjoy, and the things that were part of my identity before I became a mom. And so, working on that in 2022.
No, I love that. I love to hear that. I think that's so cool with the generation now, excuse me, as opposed to earlier generations, that you're working on the life balance early, the family balance. And sometimes I know a lot of families, when kids come, they have the priority and everything's revolved around them. It's like there's no parents. It's just everything the kid wants to do, the children want to do. And like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I love that you all just came back from Puerto Rico with the new baby. I
We
loved
did.
it. That was cool to see. I said, wow, they're traveling, they're out. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. She's got a passport, actually, so she's
oh,
ready
wow.
to roll.
I need to get mine updated. Mine are so expired now. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
your babies are adorable, and maybe we'll get to show them on the screen a quick glimpse of them really quickly. But you said that your son was almost born at home. So when you said that earlier, I was thinking, yep, that. And our sons have the same name. They're both Gabriel. So
That's true. They're
maybe
both
that was
gay.
that thing they were in a hurry to get here.
That's
So
so funny.
but I love the fact
Yeah.
that you and your husband were able to expand your family. Like you saw that intentionality of it, where I think a lot of times, especially in my case, I literally there was a lot of time for that. I mean, literally, I was
Yeah.
before my first anniversary. There was a new baby there, so it was like, whoa.
Wow.
The honeymoon baby, here he is, and now you're thrust
Wow.
into motherhood. So it did make a little bit of a difference for me in my 20s, not really getting a chance to figure out who I was. And I think that's something that I love that parents are doing now, and families are really taking time to know themselves first and establish a career even too, and to get their marriage going. So it makes a huge difference. But
Right. Right.
of course, it's still possible on the other side, but it's a lot easier if you get a chance to do that. So
Yeah.
you mentioned about like as far as the priorities changing and those kind of things. What things do you like best about being a mom, and what do you like least about being a mom? Because everything has us things you like the most and things you like
Yeah,
don't like the best. So
that's true. Um, I love children. I told you what I
that's
do is
yeah.
I'm a kid doctor, so I do like kids, and my kids are still fairly young, right? So even teens are not bad. I mean, they're kind of fun in their own way, but so I like that. I like talking to them and just kind of seeing them grow. I really love babies, so that's my favorite stage, and so I'm having a really good time with the baby right now. Um, and so that's great. Just having these people who they are their own people when they come to us. I don't believe that I have that much control over who they end up being. I might have some guardrails and some
Yeah.
things to train them up in, but they are full souls. And so just seeing who they are and who they're turning out to be is definitely fun. Yeah, there's as far as challenges, what do I like least? What do I like least? Um, So, I don't like not having time for myself sometimes, right? And because the thing is, I want to invest so much in these little people. There's only so much time in the day. I have a
Yeah.
demanding job and husband and everything. And so it does feel like something has to give. And so,
Hmm.
I don't like not being able to be fully present with them,
Hmm.
or if I'm doing something else. So I think the time factor is probably the hardest pull and push. Is really, they take a lot of time and energy, having kids. So I do think it's possible. I'm sure we'll get to this at some point, but I think one of the things that's really difficult with raising kids these days is but we tend to do it in isolation, I think more so than in previous generations, and certainly more so
Mhm.
than,
Mhm.
pre-industrialized generations did, when, it was really a communal and community effort. And so
Yeah.
I think that's part of what makes it really challenging, is that we're trying to do so much. We have such high expectations about everything, and yet we often don't have a lot of community support to do that.
Mhm.
So, I just really try to be intentional about that. And even if I don't have family support, I will, hire my village, you know what I mean, and
Yes.
have people in place to help. And that has made the time stuff easier.
No, that's perfect to hear. It's good to hear you talk about the whole village, because I think that is definitely a big piece that's missing now. It really
Hmm.
is a lot of isolation. I was mentioned
Yeah.
earlier about my four children, and two of them, well, three live out of state. So there's my sons here,
Mm-hmm.
but the three daughters live out. And so my oldest daughter, lives across the country, and she's on her way back to Cincinnati. But
Hmm.
to raise, to start a family with
Yeah.
family around her, that village, and knowing that how important that is, because it is really hard. And I see a lot of families who are, like I said, isolated
Hmm.
from other family
Yeah.
members, and so you have to really, like I said, create your tribe. You have to hire your
Hmm.
tribe. You have to create
Hmm.
it. I know a lot of
Hmm.
I know, at least for me, and I know we're people of faith. That's a huge piece right there of our tribe, is
Hmm.
our faith, our church brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
and those we hang with, friends that we have. And so I think a lot of people are isolated, and
Yeah.
it's harder than it has to be when it's by yourself.
Yes.
So definitely
Absolutely.
meet other people. And
Hmm.
I have a couple of questions here, of course, so we don't have to follow the order. But one I wanted to ask was about the whole stress and anxiety, and even the self doubt. Like, I know that the question
Hmm.
is, have you experienced that? Which is, there's very few people who can say no to that question. And then,
Hmm.
as a mom, how do you handle that? How do you handle stresses and anxieties and times of loneliness?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think probably the biggest thing is just to recognize how universal these feelings are. And I think sometimes we feel like it's just so we're a bad parent, or that mom guilt stuff is definitely real. But
Yes.
I think, reminding ourselves that, these are common feelings. I was reading an article the other day about mom rage, even. And I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely a thing. You know what I mean? So like,
Hmm.
these feelings and the stressors are very common. So that's the one thing. It's like, just, we're
Hmm.
not alone. We're not the only ones feeling this, or struggling with this. Um, I think for me, one of the things that I've tried to do to manage my stress and anxiety is really just to lower expectations, in lots of different areas. So, again, in the past couple of years, I've tried to sort of focus on taking care of myself, physically or spiritually or whatever. And in order to do that, you have to steal time from something else. And so I had to lower my expectations around how clean the house is going to be, for instance. I'm just not going to have the time to do what
Hmm.
I was doing before. And try to find a happy medium there, but certain things is gonna have to let go. Um, I try to outsource as much as I can too, if things are possible.
Hmm.
When I was end of my pregnancy and when I was on my maternity leave, I sourced out the laundry for my youngest child, and sometimes for myself, just because I just could not keep up. And actually, I'm getting behind again. I might need to do that again. But as much as I can, I try to get help to do things that are stressing me out, that I'm just not able to manage, and to meet the expectations that I need, because we do need clean clothes. Um, I find I did a lot of yoga during my pregnancy, and I tend to do it during
Okay.
pregnancies, and I don't do it a ton outside of that, and I need to get back into it. But I do find, um, just taking some time just away, to be present and just to do something that's kind of for me to be helpful. I love massage, and I try to get that on a
Yes.
regular basis.
Yes.
Just taking care of the body, and I carry a lot of stress up here, so
Hmm.
loosening all that stuff. Um, when it comes to self-doubt, I mean, we don't know. This is one of those jobs and one of those tasks that you don't know if you've messed it up until the end, right? Because we can
Yes.
mess up our kids. Even though they
Yes.
come as fully formed souls, parents can we can mess up, and we do mess up.
Yep.
but it's such a long game that we're playing. And so all we can do is the best that we know how. When I make a mistake, I try to correct it. I apologize to my kids, when I mess up with them, so they understand that, I'm human and we're all learning and trying our best.
Mhm.
And that's all I can do, really. That's how I am in all areas of my life, is I can only do my best. And beyond that, I can't really worry. I mean, I can worry, but it's not going to do anything to worry about it or wonder about it. So I try to do the best that I can with the circumstances that I have, and I try to do better each time, and try to learn as much as I can about parenting and child development and that kind of thing, so that I can be supportive, because my kids are also different and they need different
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
So certainly try to spend time with them, but I really try not to take on any mommy guilt. Like, I really resist it. I feel like the job is hard enough, and I know that these days we have so much expectations and pressures around what moms do. But
Right.
I just think back to generations and generations that have come before, and the things that they did not do a tenth of some of the things that we do, and we feel more guilt than they did, right? So
Yep.
I just know that I'm doing the best that I can, and hope, and I pray that, because I'm a woman of faith as well, that God is watching over them and will,
Mhm.
and He
Mhm.
ultimately will take care of
Mhm.
them, and help them be okay. Because I think, again, just remembering that we really don't have all the control over our kids' lives. There are going to be things that happen to them that we cannot
Mhm.
control.
Mhm.
Our job is to prepare them as best as we can, and there's going to be a lot that we just have to walk out on faith about, and there will be, even now, if they're not even out of the house, but I see there's so much less control I have over the things they come in contact with. And it's just,
Right.
I just have to have faith that, I protect them as much as I can, but they're out there, that God will protect them. So yeah.
Wow, you said a lot of great stuff. Like seriously, you could like drop the mic. I mean, like when you first talked about time and self care, I was like, man, that is so true. Because first of all, there's not a lot of enough time and energy, like you said earlier, to do all the things, and that would be the downside that you are not able to be fully present. And then to
Yeah.
talk about the outsourcing, that in itself is so huge because, and I love when you said lower expectations. I put a star on that one, but it comes back down to you're right. I think
Yeah.
sometimes the bar is so high in our own
Yeah.
mind. We have it high a lot of times. And then sometimes there's pressure on the outside that puts it there, but we have
Yeah.
to still accept that pressure. And sometimes we
Yeah.
accept the pressure and then we're trying to run and do 100 things and trying to be
Hmm.
all things to all people and you burn
Right.
out. And that was one thing when you
Yep.
mentioned that, I think back in my time period, because we're a little bit different generations as far as I'm definitely at the end of the baby boomers. And our
Mm.
philosophy back then was it wasn't like, it was like, jump, how high could I jump? How quickly?
Mm.
But now I
Yeah.
see if you say jump, the question is why? Like it's like not even
Hmm.
how high, like why I need to jump. So
Hmm.
and we in our my time period, it was no thing. I don't think I ever heard the word self care. And
Right.
when I up until maybe the last 10 or so years, the last past decade, a lot about the balance of that. And I love it. And I was
Hmm.
telling my daughter-in-law, like, I'm so excited that you are mothering in this time period because
Wow.
it's like a balance. But because back then it was like a badge of nobility to burn yourself
Mm.
out for your kids. And
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
children, and so many marriages failed later on.
Yeah.
The kids got
Yeah.
older because it wasn't a balance and it wasn't the self
Yeah.
care. And I love the examples you gave of yoga and massages and all those things and getting laundry done outside the home. I
Hmm.
mean, definitely. So any kind of help I think that we can get, like we mentioned earlier with the village, is definitely
Hmm.
some good tips that you gave here too. And then the ideal of that, we just have to relax on some of the stuff. You just have to know that the kids come how they are. We do the best you
Hmm.
say. I like the words you said, guardrails and bumper rails. There are certain,
Hmm.
we are trying to keep them, safe and
Hmm.
disciplined into some way. But this, that's the whole
Right.
self-regulation skills and the social skills,
Yeah.
but it's also letting them flourish and be who they're meant to be, who God designed them to be. And some of that
Right.
we don't have control. We do the best we can do, like you said. And those are all
Hmm.
really good tips that you mentioned here
Hmm.
as far as you just can't control everything. That's a whole nother, that's a piece in itself because I think a
Hmm.
lot of anxiety comes from that. We want to
Hmm.
control it all, and where we
Hmm.
get super fearful that every
Yeah.
bad thing's bad is going to happen to them, and so we
Yeah.
got to stand guard. We have to make it
Yeah.
not, and we know as moms that that's no way that your kids they fall down right in front of us. Like we can't,
Right.
they're learning how to walk. So part of the learning to walk is the falling, and that's part of the
Yeah.
growing and the learning. So I like how you mentioned pediatrician too. What you're doing there too with the kids that you talk with and get a chance to watch them grow and you know and
Mm-hmm.
to interact with them. And I'm sure you help a lot of moms who walk in who are feeling a little anxious and nervous at times about their child's development, and you can help to put them at ease a little bit. I know when my children were small, I loved my pediatrician. Her name was
Mm.
actually was Dr. Graham, and I think she's still practicing now
Oh
in
yeah, she
Cincinnati.
is. She
Camille
is.
Graham, I'll say her name, and I'm sure she won't mind it being said. But she was, I really, she really taught me a lot of things about motherhood, and I didn't
Mm.
realize that pediatricians did that. When I would go in,
Mm.
she would teach me things and tell me this, and I have to say that village was there was really great for me. That really gave me that love for learning and wanting to read things. And of course, I was an elementary ed major, so that was, you know, I already had that bent toward that. But but at that young age to get that guidance, so I know that
Yeah.
you're doing the same thing. I can tell that you're that kind of a pediatrician with mothers and dads that walk in and whoever's
Mm-hmm.
caregivers that you're giving some good feedback there. So wow. Hmm. I'm trying to think of what to ask you next because you gave us so much good information. I do know there's a one saying that we sort of touched on earlier, but the saying about I wanted to get your opinion on that women are expected to work like they don't have children and mother like they don't have work.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's very true. And I actually do a fair amount of work in my professional life around gender equity in our jobs, and what we come up against time and time again is that while women are advancing professionally, you know, over the generations, we've come more and more into the workforce and we're doing more and more things in the
Mhm.
workplace. A lot of the expectations around home life and domestic life and care and chores and things really have not changed much. Men are doing a little
That
bit
is so
more than they
true.
used to,
Mm,
but
mm,
really
mm.
so much still falls on women.
Yes.
And so, no, absolutely, I 100% agree with that saying. And
Yeah.
we have a lot of work to do, I think, as a society to just recognize, if we want women to continue to use their full, you know, mental capacities in the workplace, that we really just need to be, we have to be supportive of families, and men have to do more.
Mhm.
So no, it's a real thing. And even studying physicians, like clearly women do like 3 times as much or something of household duties, which are obviously unpaid, as men
Mhm.
do. And so that's part of why women also are lagging sometimes in the workplace, is because you really can't do it all. And so if you
Yeah.
have all this stuff going on at home, you really aren't able to be at work as if you're not a mother. And so sometimes it's called a motherhood tax, really, this that like
Mm.
sort of holds you back
Mhm.
sometimes in the workplace. And then for the women who choose to not work for that period of time, like as you did for sort of 10 years, because you want to fully concentrate on the home, at some point you may want to go back into the workplace. And then what does that look like? And how far behind are you then? So I just think, yeah, as a society, if we want half of our population to be part of our, professional and work life, which I think is great. I think women add a lot to the
Mhm.
spaces that we're in. We just need a lot more support at home, and that's part of what stresses a lot of working mothers out right now, is just
Yes.
having so much to on both ends, having so much responsibility.
Wow, that right there is a whole nother, that's a whole great conversation right there because you hit the hammer on the head on that when you're right. The moms are still that underlying expectation that
Mm-hmm.
if someone walks into your home, they're going to look at the female
Mm-hmm.
of that house more than the guy.
Absolutely.
They're not going to say,
Absolutely.
"Oh, you guys both are." They're going to say, "Oh, look at what kind of house she keeps," and it's like, let
Exactly.
alone she worked 50 hours out of the house
Exactly.
that week and have small children or
Yeah.
even older children who are
Yeah.
busy because sometimes the myth
Mm-hmm.
is I had teenage children. when you mentioned about being home, I was home 10 years, and then I went.
Mhm.
We did some missions work in Jamaica for 4 years. So we
Mm.
took all the kids and moved over there. So by the time I came back, I was about 15 years behind my other
Mm.
counterparts, and so I ended up going back to school and finishing my degree 6 years straight. So that was another
Wow.
6 years. So that was 20 years behind. So when I finally entered the work market, I felt like I was trying to catch up, and it was like even though my
Mhm.
kids were older, they still needed help, but I still fell on me. And
Absolutely.
when the house was a mess, when I came back, it was like it was mom, it was up to me, and I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm not the only one that lives here. We all live in the
Right.
house. We all contribute. So I think nowadays there are some, you said there are some gains. Men are helping more than they used to, 10, 20 years
Mhm.
ago, even 30
Mhm.
years back. But it's still it's not
It's not
equal.
parity. Mm-mm.
No, I know
No.
in my agency recently, they a great equity thing they did do is to give dads the same amount of maternity leave as moms. So
Maternity leave,
paternity, so
yes.
actually they get I believe it's 12 weeks, both mom and dad, or maybe 16 weeks.
Wow.
I know it's actually more than I think it's 12. I know it's an even number, either 12 or 14.
Mhm.
I was quite impressed that our dads get that much
Mhm.
time too. And
Mhm.
I have to say, I love a shout out to my son. He definitely is a new dad. I'm a grandmother, so I have a 4-year-old granddaughter, and also how old is she now? 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks. I'm old.
Oh my
5 weeks. She's
gosh.
5 weeks today.
Congrats. I
Right,
didn't know
thank you.
that.
So she's 5 years. I'm sorry.
Oh.
By the time I flash pictures of Lizzie, I mean,
Oh.
Lizzie is a 4-year-old, but Sophia is the brand new. So both of them are sweet little girls, and their dad,
Mm.
my son, he's really in the mix. But I still know that the burden still falls on my daughter-in-law to be, as far as
Mhm.
it's not fair. So, but he
Yeah.
definitely has helped a whole lot more, and he's doing the whole gender thing to be there. But there's some things that, of course, that we put on ourselves as well as sometimes as
True.
moms, because we, our bar, like you said, I love when you said to lower the
Mhm.
expectations. I think if we do that
Mhm.
back in the day, I'd have to keep the house totally clean and all the kids,
Mhm.
just looking spotless. And I was wore out tired. And I think the
Mhm.
one thing I wrote down, I was looking at the questions of how I handled stress back then.
Yeah.
My one saving thing was to take a shower at least once or twice a week. I would get in the shower and I would just cry with the water in the shower on me to let all the stress out. And
Wow.
I didn't cry that I had children. I was just crying for the actual workload to be a good mother, because you can still have 4 children and not, be neglectful and still, not feel the stress. But I was in the mix. I was just, I was always trying
Mm.
to be there for them. And I'm super thankful that
Mhm.
they are doing well in life because of me putting that time. But there's a lot of things we didn't have financially because we lived on one income. And it was a
Mm.
little tough back then. And I remember once
Mm.
the question was, "So what do you do all day?" And you must be happy you can just stay home all day. And I just looked at that person and I just couldn't say anything because I was thinking, do you know what is in my head right now? There's a lot of probably some things I shouldn't
Mm.
say to you that are not nice
Yeah.
words. And I have 4 little people. And at one point I had an infant, a 2-year-old, 2.5-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old.
Oh
And
my
I was 27. I was 27 years
wow.
old and I had 4 kids. And I was like, that was a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
But because of that, so it was that pressure. But anyway, back to the gender equality, I think that's something that really does need to be, of course, continue to be looked at and talked about
Mm.
and expressed. And then talk again about the expectations of us lowering our expectations. So last week was Black Maternal Health Week, and so I didn't know
Mm.
if you had any thoughts on that you want to talk about, or anything that you want to give to new wannabe moms or soon to be
Mm.
moms or new moms, or anything, any parting advice that you would give, or anything you would wish you
I
had known
mean,
differently.
I think the one thing I try to tell my friends, or people that I come in contact with, is just to have grace with yourself.
Mhm.
We take on a lot in being mothers, and just physically the demands of growing a human, delivering a human, feeding a human. It's a lot, and I think we just need to have more grace with ourselves. I hate this idea of women having a snapback, or whatever they call it. I don't even know, like getting your body
Absolutely.
back or whatever. Like
Yeah.
what? No, your body is completely forever changed, when you
Yes.
have a baby. And why in the world do we have expectations that moms need to be what they were before?
Yes.
So I think just in general, I think that's the word that I would just, say, that just to remind yourselves of, is just to have grace with yourself, and to have grace with other mothers too.
Mhm.
I think sometimes we are hardest on each other. Women are hardest on other women or on moms, other
Mm,
moms, and have grace for other mothers too, who are also doing the best that they can.
mm.
And let's just support each other, because yeah, it's hard out here.
That is a good word. You are hit the hammer again on that on the nail. Grace with ourselves and grace with others. You're right. And I don't know why as women, even outside of mom, as women, we are a
Hmm.
little more competitive with each other instead of complimentary and really trying to
Hmm.
support. And so I love that reminder, and that, that just, the last words of, hey, just be kind to yourself, be grateful with yourself, be grateful with other people. You
Hmm.
don't know what that mom has gone through before. Sometimes we judge people
Yeah.
based on what we, from our own lens, our own perspective, but not
Yeah.
knowing what they're going through. So give them grace. I agree that people are doing the best they can
Hmm.
do. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you can't give what you don't have. And when you know
Hmm.
better, you do better. So when that person knows better or experiences better, they'll do better. And maybe they need
Yeah.
you to be that person, to be
Exactly.
encouraging and to help them. So, well, I'm going to stop there because I have probably like six more questions that I would to ask you, but not going to push. I'll save some for a part two. But I do want to say I do thank you for your time, for your words of wisdom, for all the you do for the little people out there who I'm sure you're a great pediatrician, and I wish that times were different. I would have gone to you as well if I was if you were older and I
Well, I'm
was
not that kind of pediatrician.
younger.
People only come to me when they're sick, so you don't want to come to me. That means you're in the
Also,
hospital somewhere.
also
I'm
you're
your
um,
pediatrician.
you're at well, that's true too. I did.
I'm a hospital-based pediatrician, so I only take care of kids when they're sick.
Okay,
So you still would not want me to take care of your kids. That would mean that they're not well. So
that's true too. Okay, okay, okay. I was, and I do work for a program where we are trying to really encourage moms to do the well check, the well baby visits, and to
yeah,
come with the preventative medical
yes,
care,
yes,
not just
we like that.
emergency when
We like
they're
that.
sick. So we're working on increasing that education on that, which is a whole nother topic too. So
Hmm.
I'll stop there. But thank you so much for your time again, for all you do for your little people, for
Thank you.
yes,
Thank
again,
you.
thank you
Yeah,
for all
it's
your
been a
time.
pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.